The Navajo Code Talkers have been a huge help in the U.S. winning World War II. Without their unbreakable code, we may have never won that battle. Back before World War II, the Navajo Indians have always learned to fight and defend themselves. Their land, culture, and animals were very important to the Navajo people. In the past, the U.S. has forced the Navajos off their lands, relocated them, and even children were forbidden to speak their own native language. If they did, then they were punished. The Long Walk of the Navajo refers to the time in 1864 when the Navajo Indians were deported out of the U.S. for an attempt of an ethnic cleansing of the Navajo people. The Navajos were forced to walk from their land, Arizona, to eastern New Mexico. More than 10,000 Navajos were forced to walk this long, treacherous walk. The Navajo Nation is the largest Indian reservation in the U.S., comprising about 16 million acres. The Navajos do not live in big villages. They bond in small groups, often near a water source. Their language was thought to be an oral language. An important Navajo war chief was known as Manuelito. He was born in Utah in about 1818. He was a member of the Folded Arms People Clan, and his father, Cayetano, was a leader known for his resistance to foreign invasion. His name means Little Manuel in Spanish, and non-Navajo nicknamed him Bullet Hole. Dr. Philip Johnson of Los Angeles offered his services to the Indians for the transmissions of messages by telephone and voice radio. The demonstration for this was interesting and successful. They sent out recruitments for these Indians. The people that came had to go through some practices to see if they had the correct abilities for this position. They practiced to see how well they could translate from their native language to the English language. Chester Nez even said, "All those years telling you not to speak Navajo, and then to turn around and ask us for help with that same language. It still kind of bothers me." The Navajo tribe is the only tribe in the U.S. that has not been infested with German students or people from other countries. Therefore, only people who knew how to speak and understand the Navajo language was the people from the tribes themselves. 1,000 Navajos, if needed, could be found with the necessary qualifications. Many Navajo Americans left their hometowns to serve in the armed forces. Now, you may be thinking, why would these people want to leave their hometowns to serve for a country that treated them so poorly? Many of the Navajos responded back with, "This is our country we're fighting for, and we don't want the horrible things that happened to us to ever happen again." To make this secret, unbreakable code, 29 Navajo men sat in a room for days and made up their own code. This new code was mostly used keywords associated with the Navajo language and turned those words into key phrases and military tactics. That enabled the code talkers to translate 3 lines of English in 20 seconds. That's much faster than the code translating machines they had been originally using. This also made the code impossible to crack. Even when the Japanese captured and tortured the Navajo people to crack the code, the Navajo people could understand that the Navajo language was being spoken, but couldn't figure out the code being used with their language. Throughout the war, over 400 Navajo have learned this code. After they came out with the code, they tested it many times to make sure that the code would be successful, and that there weren't any flaws in the translation of the codes. Once they found out that the code talkers could be a very successful weapon to use in World War II, the code talkers were designated to different areas to translate and send codes. In some areas, it was very rough to survive. It was said that one time there was a Navajo code talker getting a drink of water late at night, so it was hard to see. When they came back to their area, they had a gun pointed directly at their head. Luckily, he had his Navajo friend there to save him. The person with the gun thought that he was a Japanese person because of the alike skin. But when it came to the skills that were needed to survive in the wilderness, that came the easiest for the code talkers because that is mostly how they lived at their hometowns. They were very good at night scouting and hiding from enemies.
The thing that you're doing is, you know that you're in a heck of a situation and you could lose your life anytime. So you're on the alert all the time. When you're out here, you know that you're going to go up to the fighting area, and you know that wherever you are, you're going to get it.
Finally, after all of their code sending, difficult times, and near-death experiences, on August 10, 1995, a code talker received a message that the Japanese had surrendered and that World War II was finally over. The code talkers have done so much to help in World War II. It was the code talkers who spread the news from the American Marines raising the flag on Jima's Mount Surbachi. The Navajo code talkers were not going to go unnoticed for all they did. Many of the code talkers returned home from the war to face discrimination, hardship, and the trauma of combat. They weren't even allowed to speak about the role they played until the code operation was declassified in 1968.
They told us not to talk about what we did during the war, like developing the code, also how to use the code and stuff like that.
In 2001, the original 29 creators of the Navajo Code were honored with the Congressional Gold Medal. Chester E.Ness, the last of the original 29, died in 2014. Until this day, only 11 Navajo code talkers are still alive, out of the 400 that served. After the war, the biggest thing that the Navajo code talkers feared was not getting the fame that they deserved. After the war, the exact opposite happened. The code talkers started to become more popular. There were movies made of them, like The Wind Talkers, Unbroken Code, and there were G.I. Joes that talked, made to honor them. And the Navajo code talkers got the legacy that they deserved.
Breaking barriers in history.